Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we are joined by S15Ep1 and Christian, who are social workers here at Adoptions from the Heart. We're going to focus on something different today. We want to discuss what it's like for folks who call in and are considering needing some services and support as they're navigating potentially placing their child who is not a newborn, but an older child. So welcome, S15Ep1 and Christian. So guys, can you share a little bit about your experiences when working with folks who are just struggling? Oftentimes we associate adoption, private adoption, with newborns, working with women and men when they're pregnant, potentially just gave birth at the hospital. But there are folks who maybe bring child home and struggle and need those supportive services just as much as those who are pregnant and considering options. So let's talk about that a little bit of your experience with calls that come in and folks who are parenting, whether it's the biological parent or even extended family members, and just need some support.
Being a little bit newer of a worker here at AFTH, I think I originally thought of older child placements where we'd be more in kind of like a child services type deal. And I think that's a big stigma that was quickly kind of proven untrue when I got here. My first case working with an older child was when the child's parents weren't able to completely care for the child emotionally. Financially, they're very stable. And there were some other mental health issues that were involved as well, leading to like reasoning for placement. We went through options counseling with them and kind of got the background of their story and why they wanted to place, and made sure to ask if there's any family members or anyone that were willing to care for the child. The child was already being cared for by the aunt. So we went through all their options with them, and in the end, I believe the child ended up staying with the aunt, and because that was working for them at the moment. But we made sure to go through all their options with them and get down to the real like roots of why they were why they're even thinking about making this very difficult decision.
Just like we do with pregnant folks, there's no pressure. You know, the point of somebody reaching out to us, even though we are an adoption agency, is we're here to just be an unbiased entity to sit down with you, really talk through all of your options, realistically what these look like, and just support you as you're navigating your emotions and how you're feeling about things, because it can be hard. And sometimes sitting down with a counselor gives you the opportunity to really put the truth on the table and navigate what's been going on. How about for you, S15Ep1? What has been your experience of working with folks who are not necessarily thinking about placing like a newborn child, but have attempted to parent and need some support?
Yeah, so with me, I've seen a lot of the times the cases are either birth mom has considered adoption in the beginning, but then got pressured by family to continue parenting. They try parenting, and a year later or 2 years later, realize that they're not being the best parent that they wanted to be at that time, and start considering other options. And that's when we go over all of their options with them. Sometimes adoption is what they want to move forward with. We go over that process with them. I've seen other cases where birth moms are just not in the right space to parent a child and consider adoption. And in those cases, we just go over and just let them know that just because they're placing their child for adoption doesn't make them a bad parent. We just assure them and just make sure that they understand what they're doing, that what they're doing is for the best interest of that child. And a lot of times it makes them feel better about their decision. I am working on a case right now. A birth father is actually looking to make an adoption plan just because he has a lot going on. There's some special needs involved, and he just wants what is best for that child. He doesn't have the resources as of right now to care for that child, so adoption is his best option. We do go over all of their options as well, but adoption for him is what's best.
Well, and I think as we're talking about stigma, sometimes it's even harder for folks who have attempted to try to parent, take child home, child may be 5, 6, 7 months old, to make that call at that point. there's this societal pressure of like, well, you've already been making it work, so why aren't you just going to continue to make it work? But oftentimes these people are calling in because they're like, no, I know this is not working and this is not what I want for my kiddo, for my other kids I may be parenting, or for me, and I want my child to have a really good life. So it's important for people to not criticize and judge, because you don't know the full circumstances of what somebody is going through. ICE2, how do you handle those calls or handle those initial meetings in terms of like, are they any different than when we do meetings with folks who are pregnant or just gave birth at the hospital?
Yeah, so those are a lot more different than the typical calls when we get when either a child is just born or a birth mom is currently pregnant. With these cases, we do like to get a little bit more background on the child, and with the birth parents, like, okay, what is going on? Have you considered adoption before in the past? And also go over all of their options. Do you have any family that can help support? A lot of times there's no family support, or family has already been supporting and it's just not working out. We try to get a lot more background for the child as well. And in those cases, we will be needing medical records. So we try to get some of that information as well. And just the counseling on that, I feel like that's a lot more different. Like you mentioned, these birth parents have already been parenting for either a couple months, a couple years, and some of them have some sort of emotional attachment with the child. So just making sure that adoption is really what they want to do, and just letting them know that, adoption is a permanent decision if you do want to move forward with this, and just giving them all of their options, letting them know that as an open adoption agency, they can always be a part of that child's life as well.
Yeah, and I think we typically find that the openness factor is even stronger for non-newborns because they've already built this bond with the child. Maybe they want to keep the child's name through the adoption process. They want to have more contact, increased number of visits, virtual calls, texting, have the ability to have more of that direct form of communication because they've shared this connection to their child for 6 months or 2 years, whatever it might be. So I think it's important for folks who are considering non-newborn placements to recognize that the level of open adoption is usually stronger and more for folks who are looking to place a non-newborn. ICE2, you hit on a good point too about like making sure we talk through options and not rushing things. And that's another important piece we want to focus on. Oftentimes we'll get calls where folks are struggling. It's 3:00 in the morning and, they've got 3 kids running around and they're just really in a panic mode. And as an agency, we really assess those calls. Just because somebody calls one day and says, I can't do this anymore, come take my child, that doesn't necessarily mean they really mean that. And we want to make sure we space things out so that they have ample opportunity to think this through and really make sure that this is what they want to do, because it's a permanent forever decision. Christian, can you speak on the case that you were referencing of just kind of what that looked like when we did space things out? And ultimately, it sounds like that case did not necessarily go through for adoption, but they navigated a plan that worked for their family.
Yeah, so what options counseling looks like within our agency is we have a sit-down meeting with the birth parent or parents, and we look at, are there any resources we can find for them in terms of financial help, emotional, mental support? Is there any family around that can take on some duties of the household? Is housing the issue? Someone may be working full-time and have daycare, but maybe like they're worried about housing, and then that's when state can kind of get involved. Also, is there any drug abuse involved, and can we get them into a rehabilitation center? So as an adoptee, I really kind of look going through options counseling thoroughly and would like to keep the family together. And I think that would be true throughout our agency for those who are adopted social workers. I sat down with these birth parents and we kind of went through what their relationship looked like. This couple wasn't still together. The father was able to provide financially and did well financially, but wasn't there emotionally. Birth mother had some mental health issues, and the child was staying with the aunt in a different country. And we kind of went over what it would look like because the child was 4 now. They were speaking Spanish. I don't recall if they knew much English. Is it better for the child to come to the US and have to assimilate to a new culture and kind of learn English and get placed while they have this loving family that's taking care of them? Is that the right choice for the child, and ultimately we're there to support the birth parent's decision, but we wanted to make sure that it was a well thought out decision and not something that they felt outside pressure to move forward with.
It's a great point, Christian. Like, we are all here for the best interest of the child, and sometimes we really do have to evaluate is adoption what's in that child's best interest based off of the circumstances. I feel like in that situation, we didn't want to rush everything. We didn't want to just say, okay, yes, birth mom, birth father, you're ready to do this. So I really like that in that moment, you were able to say, listen, let's pause for a second. We had maybe 2-3 meetings with those clients before we got to the point of them realizing, you know what, this is not what I want. I thought this is what I wanted, but I think the child staying where he is with his biological family is what's in his best interest. So we want folks to realize, other organizations, communities who may be faced with somebody who is struggling, you can call us. We're not here to just take a child and place child immediately. We're really here to provide supportive services. And we've had many workers describe situations like Christian is talking about, where they call us, we go out, we provide free options counseling. There's no commitment. We're really there to help them navigate what they want for them and their kids. And if that means family placement or finding other resources to continue parenting, that's still a win for us. That's still important for us. And what I mean by that is, we believe that people have the right to decide what they want for themselves and their families, and we just want to support them through that. So I appreciate you adding that to the conversation, Christian. AFTHtv, as you're navigating an upcoming placement for a non-newborn, can you describe what the practicality of that looks like? Like, how do they connect? Do they meet? When does placement happen? Talk to us about how you approach that as the social worker handling that case.
Yeah, so everything kind of goes with the pace of the birth parents. I kind of talk her through everything, let her know what the process is, and then I kind of just check in and see, do you want to meet with the adoptive family? In my case, she did want to meet with them beforehand. So we scheduled a Zoom meeting. They met on Zoom and they instantly connected. It was a very nice meeting, just having them both on there. She also, adoptive family, got to meet the child. It was a nice meeting. So from that meeting, I connected with the birth mom as well, and just kind of see where her head was at. Are you still comfortable with this? How do you feel about everything moving forward? And she was still very confident with her decision to move forward. So we set a date for placement to happen. And placement is actually happening next Monday, where adoptive family will come into our office with the birth mom and the child, and they will meet. We will sign placement paperwork. Birth mom will sign her consents, and then child will be placed. And then throughout this process, I'm just periodically checking in with the birth mom and seeing, how she's doing. And they are going to have open communication with each other. They're going to exchange phone numbers, emails, where they can just communicate directly with each other as well.
That's wonderful. And I think in your situation, the prospective adopted parent is keeping the name that the biological mother named child, and that's really important to her. And I think it shows that commitment and the respect that she has for the birth mother. I think it's also really important to note that if that birth mom comes in on Monday and doesn't feel comfortable, or maybe says, listen, can this be a trial run? And can she just take the child, short term, just to make sure that this is what I want to do? We implement that. We've had many non-newborn placements where it's, let's have an overnight visit, or let's do a couple of visits here in the office and then go out to a community park and I want to see them interact. There's a ton of options of how we can handle non-newborn placements. But as AFTHtv said, the birth parent is the one who is in charge and the one who decides what is going to work for her, because this is a really big deal, and we want to make sure that we have the support in place for them to make that decision. I do also want to make mention for AFTHtv's case, she welcomed in that birth parent to our monthly support group a couple of weeks ago. So the birth mom had the opportunity to connect with other birth parents who have placed. We run a monthly virtual support group for birth parents, and this particular birth mom afterwards shared that it really helped solidify her decision that this was, one, the right plan, two, this was the right agency. And she felt like hearing the other girls talk about the families and the openness they have and seeing their child, stable and happy and being loved on, she felt good about moving forward. So I know that was something really important for AFTHtv's client as she was navigating moving forward. Other thoughts that you guys may have as we're having these conversations of non-newborn placements?
I just wanted to add on to what you just said about the support groups. I feel like that really did help her a lot. Before attending that support group, I know she was pretty confident with her decision, but after she attended and I was just talking with her, I could see that it really helped her a lot. Because as social workers, we can counsel them and go over all of their options and just talk to them throughout this whole process. But hearing from other birth moms and other birth parents really helps them a lot. And I feel like she felt connected to them and she was able to kind of see herself in their shoes as well, which really helped her in making this decision.
Thank you for that. And for you, Christian?
You touched on it when we first started speaking on this, but I think just really commending birth parents for even considering the idea of especially placing an older child. I would imagine it's an incredibly difficult position to be in, and it's a very humbling act as well. Having these conversations and breaking down stigma around it is something that we can really do to empower our birth mothers and birth fathers who may not be in the position right now to parent. And for people looking to adopt, hopefully these conversations as well can shine like a bigger light on the great sacrifice that birth parents make.
Absolutely. And even extended birth family, if birth parents are not involved in the picture and you have a birth grandparent or a birth aunt who is parenting child, there shouldn't be this stigma, misconception that you don't need help, right? And we shouldn't be looking down upon folks who are reaching out to try to find supportive services, because it's hard, whether it is a financial reason or mental health, whatever the circumstances may be that somebody's having challenges. We should actually uplift these people, have them know that it's okay to reach out for help. And it shows who you are and the love and care that you have for that child, that you're exploring all options to make sure that you're doing right by that kiddo. So that's what we stand for here at Adoptions from the Heart. And we just want folks to know that we're here. We're here to support you. We're here to help you navigate what's right for you and your family. And there's no pressure. There's no judgment. We really just want to know that you have a support team in your corner. So thank you to AFTHtv and Christian for sharing your experiences with non-newborn placements. We're hopeful that this interview will help folks as they're exploring their options, whether you're looking to adopt a non-newborn or you are looking to potentially find supportive services and reach out to a counselor to explore your options. So thank you very much, guys. Continue to tune in.